Hi. I'd like to build on Francis' statement that the important thing is to transmit principles and not skills. And I'd like to go a little further. You might think that it's too much further. I hope not. I would like to introduce the idea that governance is an intrinsic part of parenting. Governance, a term usually applied to the governing power of a state, is evidently inherent in parenting, since its particular forms, such as laws against parental abuse and neglect, or laws that regulate the creation of parents in cases of adoption and artificial fertilization, are in fact the manifestation of cultural and social norms that govern parenting in general. Various forms of governance at different times in history, foster certain norms and downgrade others, conspicuously in such cases as the kibbutz in its early days. Understanding the features of particular forms of governance is therefore essential in examining whether parenting intervention can be translated to different contexts. For this purpose, I will borrow Foucault's definition of two governing apparatuses and present my discussion by using examples of intervention programs in Israel. The first one is defined by Foucault as a disciplinary mechanism. It conceives of man as wicked and works in a sphere that is complementary to reality by constituting a constraining and artificial reality. The following are its features. It concentrates, focuses, and encloses. Its first action is to circumscribe a space in which the mechanism of its power will function fully and without limit. It regulates everything and allows nothing to escape attention and control. The smallest things must not be abandoned to themselves. Its basic function is prevention. It divides according to the code of the permitted and the forbidden, while specifying that the permitted is obligatory. The disciplinary apparatus is employed by emergency centers which shelter children who are in danger, often at the hand of their parents. The aim of the children's stay in these centers is in fact to attempt to improve, as far as possible, the relationship with the parents and to assess whether the children can go back home. As measures of protection, the children are confined in these centers, which are closed spaces. Their activities are closely and constantly supervised. Every single telephone conversation of every single child with any person, family members and professionals alike, is listened to by one of the staff. Meetings between parents and children are permitted and are prescribed for a specific frequency and duration, whether it is a children's visit at home or the parent's visit at a designated space in the center. They are not allowed into the living quarters of the children. These meetings are tailored individually for each child. The permission granted to parents to meet with their children is obligatory, since not visiting is seen to reflect indifference or neglect. Viewing this regime as adhering to an essentially disciplinary apparatus accounts for the creation of a constraining reality in which the children are confined within a tightly controlled space. The tapping of every telephone contact, rather than selecting only those situations in which such an infringement on basic liberties is warranted, reflects the rule that everything has to be regulated and nothing is allowed to escape. This formulation provides an explanation for the paradox inherent in creating an artificial reality that conveys the message that the world outside the center is dangerous to children involved in a program that is certainly aimed as much as any intervention with children to help them develop into secure human beings. This brings me to the explication of the features of a second governing apparatus that Foucault defines as security. It views the will of people as expression of liberty and allows free movement so as to let things follow their course. The following are its features. It always has a tendency to expand. It is centrifugal and involves organizing and allowing the development of ever-widening circuits. It tries to grasp details at the level of their nature and maximizes elements which enhance the circulation of people, things, and ideas, and minimizes what constitutes a disturbance. It values particular details in terms of their pertinence to the population and not in terms of their value as good or bad in and of themselves. I will discuss this apparatus by presenting a particular form of daycare center that is designed to expand its services and cater not only to the needs of the children who come from deprived families, but also to their parents. The format of these centers is different from other daycare centers in that, if necessary, children can stay in the center till 7 in the evening, and in that it employs a social worker and other professionals who offer various forms of treatment activities. As I began to participate in establishing this service in the country, I was approached by the head of one of the teams with a question. A mother of a child referred to the center was very depressed. She did not respond either to her child or to the approaches made by the staff. This worker deliberated whether to sanction the mother by making her participation in the treatment program a condition for keeping her child in the center. The advice given to this worker to view the mother also as a recipient of the child's need for care, and not only the one who provides it, was received by enthusiasm. And the suggestion that deprived parents may sometimes be jealous of the attention given to the children and not to themselves seemed plausible to her. It turned out that this particular staff was amenable to the proposed approach, and in the next meeting with them, a true regime of security began to unfold. Parents were welcome to stay on after bringing their children in the morning. They could also help with serving the meals and could join their children and eat with them. Rather than designating sharing observation and information with the parents as a guidance intervention, this was done by the use of the natural daily encounters between the staff and the parents. In creating a context in which effective reality was used as support, the staff established the custom of morning coffee, whereby the parents, who had ample times on their hands but very little money, were invited to stay on one morning a week as a leisure activity, sit around and be served coffee. However, in my encounter with the same service in another city years later, I did not find this approach, although the format of the service remained intact. Information and any other contact with the parents were done mostly through guidance sessions with the social worker and by the provision of special treatment modalities. The suggestion that a particular child would stay on at the center till the evening was tagged as an indicator of parental failure. An unwillingness of parents to take advantage of the treatment opportunities offered to them served as a negative indication, commonly titled as lack of cooperation. By comparing these two particular daycare centers, I want to point out that the use of the security apparatus has to be constantly supported. Serious obstacles stand in its implementation. First and foremost is the lack of theoretical support for the view of parents and being also on the receiving end of parenting. Even the opportunity presented by attachment theory, which introduced the dramatic breakthrough as in viewing the infant as an active participant in forming attachment with a parent, has not served as a turning point that could have brought about a view of parenting as reciprocal. This theory quickly moved to explain the infant's nature of attachment with their parents in terms of the parent's attachment with his own parents by inventing the adult attachment interview. Thus, we found ourselves back where the early psychoanalytic thought left us, when the infant's relationship with her mother was conceived of as determined by the mother's own childhood experiences. This manifestation of repetition compulsion, if you excuse the expression, indicates the dominance of the unidirectional view of parenting, a view which supports the use of disciplinary apparatus, as causation is easily replaced by accusation. Another obstacle to the implementation of the security apparatus in the sense proposed by Foucault is determined by the Israeli ethos of security, which is realized by the employment of the disciplinary mechanism, as you can see here. It is difficult to implement a program that relies on expansion and maximizes natural circulation of people and things into social cultural contexts that its principal governing apparatus circumscribes the space where control can be exercised fully according to a code that divides between the permitted and the forbidden. Therefore, the translation of successful intervention program into the Israeli context, as in fact into any other context, requires an examination of its governing apparatus and its relationship to the dominant social cultural apparatus to assess what support, if any, is needed to maintain not only the format of the program, but also its intent, purpose, and basic approach, or whether such maintenance requires some modification in the program. This examination is, to my mind, the task and challenge of critical research.